Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Chapter Tactics. I am your host, Magikarp Used Fly, and with me today we have our regular co-host in Demeki.
Hey, y'all, how y'all doing?
John P.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
And special guest, Skari.
Salutations, all of you players of the game.
Not just Skari, but we also have the one, the only, Val.
Hey, y'all, how y'all doing?
Val, welcome back to Chapter Tactics, man. How does it feel?
You know, it's pretty all right, man. Like, you guys been keeping it nice, warm, and cozy. Skari, this is just like old days.
This feels right. I will say it's, your subtle voice tones are not appreciated enough since you've been mainly the servo skull head of the entire Frontline Gaming podcast network.
Yeah.
You gotta put the brains where they count, you know?
Yeah.
That's behind all this stuff. Raph, you're doing a great job. Just do your job.
Good job, Raph.
Good job, Raph.
Everybody give a round of applause to Raph.
Raph, you're fired.
Good job, man. Good job, Raph.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
All right, so off of the tail end of SoCal, the Orks Freebooters list has become a very, very big buzzword topic in the 40K community. So what we're going to be unpacking today is just basically talking about different ways that you can fight against freebooters, what are some good armies that can go against freebooters, and basically just not tell you guys, but open your minds into understanding that there is options available out there, and it's not just freeboot. If you don't play freebooters, you lose. Basically,
You have to open your mind.
yes, think outside the box.
Wait, you're telling me this isn't a
Expand
game
your
of rock, paper,
consciousness.
scissors?
Yeah, this isn't a game of pay to win. This isn't what's it called?
Pay to win.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, it's a gotcha game, man. It's what's the game that everyone plays online? That's a gotcha game.
Genshin?
Genshin Impact. It's not Genshin Impact. It's not Reach Shadow Legends, guys.
Legends.
Words. These are words.
Love me some Genshin Impact, I'll tell you. Me and Skari, we're all over that. It's fantastic.
Wait, really?
Oh, yeah,
Really?
100%.
It's a good game.
No, I don't believe it at all. I don't believe it for
Where does
1
the
second.
where does the sus meme come from? That seems
The
fun.
Sesame. that's from Fortnite.
Yo, that's sus, bro.
Yeah,
That's sus.
Yeah.
That's very sus.
It's very sus. Hey, Val, do me a favor. Can you say you sussy
Isn't
baka?
that from Among Us?
Yeah, it is.
That's
It is. It is.
I just fucking I live in
That
a
guy's
small
sus.
room.
Val, can you do me a
It's from
favor?
all of them.
Val, can you say you sussy baka? Just real quick.
You sussy baka.
Oh my
Oh
god.
my goodness.
And with that,
With the shades on, too.
there is no Did You Know today. But as always, this show is brought to you by frontlinegaming.org, where you can get amazing game mats for not just your 40K games, but almost any tabletop game out there. Purchase miniatures at a discount and join some of the largest 40K events in the industry. They also have the largest 40K podcasting network in the business, with shows like Signals from the Frontline, Chapter Tactics, which you're listening to right now, 40K
Right now.
Game Changers, 40K Stat Center, Grim After Dark, and so much more. That's frontlinegaming.org. Or you can click on the link in the description of this podcast on all the social media goodies out there. New
Woohoo!
Orleans coming up in
I
December.
like that you say and so much more, but that's pretty much it.
Nuh-uh. There's
So much more.
there's so much more. Don't make me look
too
bad,
soon.
Val.
Maybe lifestyle. Okay.
Yeah. That's my favorite show.
Yeah, that's
I'd
good stuff.
buy that for $1.
Yeah. Okay. New Orleans coming up in December. Make sure you guys get your
Orleans.
tickets.
Open.
LVO as well coming up in January. Make sure you guys are staying on top of everything. We'll see you guys there. I don't know if we're going to see you guys in New Orleans, but
Nolans.
LVO, we will be there. So go check it out. Make sure you get your tickets. And hopefully this podcast helps you guys out in order to understand how to fight against freebooters if that is the meta that goes into the LVO.
100% won't be. But what I would say is 1,200 people I heard signed up for the 40K champs so far.
Woo! Let's go.
Yep.
To put that in perspective, SoCal had 200, and that was a very big event.
Yeah.
How big? Yeah.
Six
yeah,
times.
Yeah. LVO has sold more than 1,000 tickets before, but never actually started with over 1,000. So if they get Yeah, if they get up over 1,200, like there's a chance that could be a really ridiculously large 40K singles event.
Yeah.
And once you've been to that hole and experienced even just the 900 people that were there, and when I was there in 2019, it's like, man, whatever. To be honest, I feel like in the future, Warhammer LVO will be 2,000 players easy, and it'll have to be more than. It'll probably have to be an entire week and doing heats and like pods and a whole bunch of stuff. It'll be great.
Dude,
That's the dream.
You listening, Reese? Was
I mean,
Reesio pulling the strings now?
I mean, to be quite honest, I mean, like, there's really no point in having a 1,200 person 40K tournament aside from having a 1,200 person.
it's all about the PR, Val. It's
yeah.
the PR. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, how big could this thing get?
I mean, think about it. It's going to be
ludicrous.
1,200
It's ludicrous.
people, probably in their between 18 and 45, in a
Squeeze me
closed
in there, I like
area,
that.
and enjoying one another company.
But I think that the biggest thing is that it's not only 1,200. This is just for the 40K championship. We're not even considering all the other games that they're doing at LVO as well.
Yeah.
Everything. It's
Yeah,
massive.
it's gonna
Absolutely
be
massive.
huge.
At this rate, they'll basically have to book out an entire casino.
I heard they're bringing back
It'll be
hero
great.
clicks.
I'm coming with my auto clicker.
Yeah, dude. You know what I realized? I know this is off topic, but it's taking place at the
Stay
Rio
here.
Hotel.
Let's just stay here. This is very
Yeah,
comfortable.
it's taking place at the Rio Hotel, and
Yeah.
you know what else is it happens at the Rio Hotel?
Adult
Penn and
stuff?
Teller fool us.
Oh,
Penn and Teller.
Shit.
Yeah,
Yo,
yeah. That's my jam.
I don't know if Penn were to show up I don't know if he would be like, oh, that's cool, or if he would just relentlessly make fun of everyone.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like he'd be like, you guys are cool,
It'd be both.
but also relentlessly make fun of us. But he's a magician, so he knows what lame but also cool is.
yeah. He's
a
gonna
magician.
pick up people's Lord of
dude.
Skulls and start juggling it.
well, I was gonna say he's gonna pick up a Lord of Skulls and be like, okay, now I will shoot it with a gun.
Yeah, I know, right? And I'm gonna catch it with my bare teeth.
Yes.
Okay.
Y'all ever
okay.
heard of libertarianism?
We are so off topic, but having a good time. Let's do this topic overview. Freebooters have become the big buzzword army, so naturally we've got to figure out what's the best way to play against them, what armies can fight against them, and the best ways to get ready to fight off the green fungus. Now, Val, from my
God.
understanding, Val, Freebooters, this whole thing that we're talking about is a little bit foreign to you. Is that correct?
Well, I won't lie to you guys. I've spent the last year or so not playing Warhammer. I've been around it, been near it, but I haven't really been playing it. So, for example, in the pre-show, I discovered that the +1 to hit that freebooters get for killing an enemy unit, in fact, stacks, which that's a little ridiculous. But nonetheless, that's fine. It's cool. It's cool. But that explains why they can get like -4 to be hit, although it can only ever be +1 or -1. Kind of overcomes dense terrain and things like that if they start getting on a roll. So yes, these freebooters, they seem scary. There's something like 500 something shots in a well-tuned shooting phase.
Yeah, more
coming
shots
out of
than
Logan's
a-
list from the SoCal Open. So
Yeah, more shots than
no,
A lot
a
of shots.
party.
A lot of stuff.
for the layman, and that's what one might call myself, a lay person. This seems a bit overwhelming. So I'm pleased to be along for the ride. Also, I don't want to buy any buggies. I have the planes, but I don't want to buy any buggies. So I would love to hear from you guys the combined wisdom of what do you do against 500 shots, some of which ignore line of sight and are making orcs hit on 4s.
Yeah, definitely. Now, in order to answer that, we have Skari here, who has fought against freebooters a couple times. How about you give us a rundown of how that goes for you before we start picking through this list of stuff that we feel like would be good against freebooters?
Well, freebooters are one of those lists, or just orcs in general, where on average, and this is a historical thing going back many editions, where orcs in general have been an army that has a ridiculous amount of shooting. It tended to be very unreliable, but there could be the one turn where the variance would spike in the orc player's favor and they'd roll better than average to hit. And because they roll so many dice, it could really have an incredible, like, sort of mathematical impact on the game itself. And what Freebooters has done is it's essentially heightened it. Before in the previous Orc Codex, Freebooters had the same sort of mechanic. However, it was limited to the unit that made the +1 happen, it was like a radius around that unit. So it wasn't like army or
24
board
inches,
wide.
yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it was still one of the only armies that effectively tabled my old, like, grotesque Talos list that I had built for the Drukhari back in the day. And it really, back then, it was something that not very many people played, but I learned to respect. So coming into it, knowing what freebooters do now, but having the previous experience, you kind of learn tips, tricks, how to best use the units that you have in your army / the terrain, which is a huge part of playing into armies that will just blow you off the table, as best you can, in order to mitigate focus fire, which is one of the things that orcs do very well, is when they can just like gang up on a unit and murder it, and B, create targeting difficulties for your opponent, so the target priority becomes off, and hopefully they make mistakes when they have so many units to shoot with. They might not pick the most optimal order to shoot in, right? And I think you combine those together, and it gives you a good sort of framework to go into the matchup with a better chance than if you just sort of like just cross your fingers and hope that you don't get blown off the board.
Yeah, which is never a good way to play 40K at all, of just being like, it's a dice game, guys. I'm gonna
The worst thing,
fingers and hoping for the best. I think that sounds like the way I roll, man. That sounds
you know,
like,
as long as you brought Peaches along for the ride, okay, just saying. then 100% you could, I'll give you that.
you know what's up.
Yeah, but one of my biggest pet peeves is when somebody goes, "Oh, I just lost because I didn't win the roll off to go first," or "Oh, it's whoever goes first wins." So you can rip me a new one in the comments if you want. Yeah. Yes, I'm a positive person, but like if you don't give yourself the mental capacity to potentially win a game, you're never going to win it.
Yeah.
So
see, you and I have the same pet peeve of people being like, it's if you don't get turn one, you lose, and I think that. Demeki, do you feel the same way, or John P?
Yeah.
Sorry to put you guys on the spot.
Nah. Yeah.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's either you gotta take it on the chin sometimes, and then if things don't go your way, you just FTT, flip the table.
I want to say, like, I don't want that to be true. I would say that. I would say I don't like hearing people say that if I don't go first, I'm going to lose. And Skari, you'll know this. I think that's a very ETC player type perspective a lot of the time, is they have a very zero-sum view at times in certain matchups. Like, there's a
certain matchups specifically, but I think that also comes into play because you're skewing your lists a lot. So what you'll have is you'll have matchups that are, and most people who go to tournaments will also, yes, I get what you're saying. Like, if you skew a list to a point where, it can be, it's dicey. If I go second, it's going to be harder for me than if I go first, 100%. But the key is, what I'm trying to tackle is the mentality of, even if I'm going to have a shitty, like a hard game, I'm never going to be out of the fight until you knock me out cold.
Exactly.
Then I'm done.
Exactly.
Right, but I have fight in me until I have nothing left in me.
I absolutely love going second.
Same.
Dude, fifth round, second turn.
It's great.
Oh,
Yeah.
give me that 15 points.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah.
Love it.
When I go first, I immediately think about how I'm going to try to get 15 points on turn 5.
Yeah, right? It's so good. Skari actually touched on this a little bit, and one of the biggest things to help you out against freebooters, and I know that this sounds strange because, a lot of people say that freebooters, they ignored this basic part of the game, and that is terrain. Player optimized terrain, I think, is also like just incredibly good when it comes to 40K and 40K events, just because you can actually come up with a game plan against any army, right? I absolutely love player optimized terrain. And I think that the biggest terrain piece that is going to help people out against freebooters is that dense cover. That dense -1 to hit, standing on it is amazingly good. And I think that we can start kicking this off for this conversation of how you guys think that player optimized terrain helps out orcs. John P., if you want to start with that.
Yeah, so with player optimized terrain, it essentially, like you said, it allows you to build out your own deployment zone. And if you play it correctly, you'll always be in the game, like regardless of whether or not you go first or second turn. And terrain obviously is such a big factor in 9th edition. You got to know what your terrain does. You got to know how to get all those buffs. Got to know how to hide and stuff. But yeah, player optimized terrain. It's obviously a double-edged sword because if you place it incorrectly, it could bite you in the butt. But it's just a great skill and like a resource for a player that might be going against a list like this for you to have.
Yeah. Let's jump it on over to Skari, and then we'll hit back over to Demeki.
Well, I think you're talking player placed terrain, right? Like when you say player optimized terrain, is that like the technical term?
The technical is tournament legal at FLG events, just so you know.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. So player optimized terrain then as a technical legal term for our for our games. Yeah, I think that's very important. Dense terrain is very, very important depending where you put it. I think one of the things that is important to note as well is to understand why especially the planes, and this is not just like freebooter planes, but we're talking like Adeptus Mechanicus planes and things like that, why they are so good, even if it's player placed terrain, because a lot of you are driving and listening to the podcast on your commutes and you're yelling at the radio here. But you can draw line of sight from any part of this plane. So the model specifically, the wing, tips, the guns, whatever it is. And a lot of the times you can sort of get around buildings and around corners and draw some like weird line of sight stuff, even with player placed terrain. And a lot of people, I feel sometimes, especially if you don't really understand how plane movement works, you might allow your opponents to like have half the plane hanging off the table and things like that, which is that's not how that works. Like the entire plane, wings, fins, has to be on the board space. It can't be overhanging outside of the table, especially if they spin and move to make a movement. As soon as any part of the plane hits that sort of like board space, they leave the table. So it's a lot more restrictive when you think about it, when you start putting into play, okay, where can the planes go? They have to play closer to the middle of the board. Anyway, knowing that with player optimized terrain, you can definitely use angles on especially L's and buildings to stop the angles from planes. And if they want to go past that, they either have to go off the table or get themselves in a bad position for next turn or leave themselves to counterattack or whatever. So there are options. There are a lot of options for you.
Yeah, no, those are really, really great points when it comes to player optimized terrain. It's not just about the dense cover, but also making sure that you're making it so that it's harder for your opponent to put those planes inside of your deployment zone, making that huge alpha strike that is just absolutely devastating. Demeki, do you have anything that you want to add on to this before we move on to the next one?
No, I don't think so. I mean, because the other part of that list is it's not even the planes, it's the artillery, right? So it's just like, oh, terrain, what's that?
Yeah.
Here's my artillery.
The only terrain that matters is like cover, light cover, heavy cover, or dense cover, sorry.
Yeah. Which, put them in buildings.
On the player optimized terrain thing, it is a bit of a mini game, and this is actually something I only picked up on because I was watching the stream. But there was a matchup that was between Freebooter Orcs and Dark Angels. I want to say like day 2.
Yeah.
And in that one, the hosts that Adam and Andrew were talking about the sort of mind games that must have been played around the actual placement of the dense terrain, like the little forest pucks. And also it was interesting to see how the Dark Angels player anticipated where he wanted to be on the table. And so it wasn't just focused necessarily on, getting the dense terrain in, certain parts of his own deployment zone, but in the sort of unfolding of how the player place terrain was put down, ensuring that some of that dense terrain was actually in places on the table outside of his deployment zone where he would want to go eventually. So it was just sort of neat to think of those things as like lily pads, especially for those big, tanky, beefy,
termy
rippling units.
Yeah.
That Dark Angels can run. And watching that matchup, I thought, freebooters ain't shit. Because what are these guys doing?
Yeah. And you know what? That's a great segue into the first army that we all think is a great army to go up against freebooters, and that is in the Dark Angels. Dark Angels, incredibly good, especially their what's their Terminator name? Demeki?
Deathwing.
Yeah, they're Deathwing Terminators with their +1 to save because of Storm Shield. Put them on a piece of terrain, especially if it has dense. All of a sudden, you are a 0 up save with transhuman.
Don't stop.
And then
Keep
on
saying
top
all
of
the
that-
good stuff.
Yeah. It's just so disgusting, especially against freebooters who I think it's only on their 6s they get an extra AP. But I could be wrong on that one. I'd have to double check. Skari, if you know, if it's only on 6s during a speed walk, where
He bounced out. No, on Speedwall, I'm pretty sure you're always getting that -1.
okay.
No matter what, not just on 6s.
Okay. All right then. So then, no matter what, like you're saving on 2s or
Yeah.
3s the entire time, which is absolutely insane. And you have that -1 to hit as well. And I think that is what is really going to be the best thing against freebooters. Demeki, do you want to talk about them since you are a Dark Angels player?
Yeah, so I mean, everything that you said is exactly right on the money. I mean, plus you can give the Terminators the missiles, so then they can at least fight the jets, since the jets are kind of a problem. But again, like I think the most devastating part is the artillery, because like they're just gonna shoot at whatever they feel like. It kind of just skews it to where you can only pretty much play Deathwing though, because you need that 4-up, wounding on 4-up, to kind of prevent any other damage that could be coming in. There's not really, I mean, you could bring your own jets if you wanted to with Dark Angels, but they're not that great. Plus, your Terminators are going to have objectives secured. So, like, there's like hardly any objective secured on that Orcs list.
Yeah. It's just money.
Yeah.
It's just real money. You're just printing money
Well,
at that point.
The freebooters list does have the it stops you from having objectives secured, like with the aura from the Death Killer War Trike.
Yeah.
And I think that's something to keep in mind. You know, it's important to, and I think playing to the objectives is one of the best things you definitely can do. But the cool thing about Dark Angels specifically is they don't have to move at all to score like 95 points.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Stubborn Defiance. Love it.
On top of they also get the apothecary.
Oh, yeah.
Raven Wing apothecary, so you can just bounce from Terminator blob to Terminator blob.
Yeah.
Healing people up.
Yeah. I think that that was one of my favorite things to hear from Joel Wilson,
Yeah.
who played Dark Angels, was that the guys shot everything at my terminus. I lost 3 and I rezzed 1. It's just,
In your face.
just so funny. I think that Dark Angels is probably like the most obvious choice into Orcs. But this next one I think is a little bit interesting. This is Thousand Suns Scarab Occult Terminators. Scarab Occult Terminators with their natural, if it's 1 damage, they get their +1 save. So you stick them in cover. The jets, if the jets shoot at them with their weapons that are 1 damage, then you have a 0-up save against that. And then for any 2-up damage that's shooting into them, you just spend the strat, and then all of a sudden it's 1 damage again, back up to a 0-up save again with Scarab Occult Terminators that are all 3 damage or 3 wounds, 4-up invulns. Just feels like a pretty good matchup into Orcs, especially with the mortal wounds that they can output. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Scarab Occult Terminators also have good means of shooting. The entire army has a 5-up invuln built in, so they have a better chance to save on all that, right? The entire army gets that all its dust also, right? So even rubrics will be saving on 2s.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And then their guns are just like so good against planes also. Because
Yeah.
like what?
Oh yeah,
They're wounding on 5s, but who cares?
Yeah.
Like they're not going to be able to make those saves.
Yeah, I think the big thing to call out is that your army can't have like that one frail unit that they can just use to snowball. And that's what you get with Dark Angels. You don't have that. That's what you get with Thousand Suns. They don't have that one like really weak unit to pick off.
Well, they have Chaos Spawn. I know that there's some Thousand Sun units that bring Chaos Spawn, but you know what they do have access to? Strategic Reserves. And also, I believe that they also have like a Relic, or it could be a Warlock trait, where they can take a unit and put it into Strategic Reserves as well. So if you know that you are going to be going second, like after the roll-off, then you could just pop that and then put them into reserves or redeploy or anything like that, which is also very interesting.
That's from the Cult of Duplicity. But that's the thing, so you've got 2 main cults that I've seen folks really enjoy with like Thousand Suns. You have Cult of Time, Cult of Duplicity. Cult of Time being very durable, like reliable regeneration and essentially summoning back the big tough Terminators. And then Cult of Duplicity, which gives you the redeploy / the strategic reserve options, but also gives you the ability to teleport the units to where you need them to go, especially if they're going to get stuck into combat, like the Terminators and things like that, to get them back out and shooting. And a good Thousand Suns list will put out 30 mortal wounds on average, so that'll kill like 2 to 3 planes that got too close / a buggy or two. And those bolters and Reaper cannons on the Terminators kill things. Like,
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
You have, until you experience how much shooting that unit can put out. Yeah, I don't care if you're a buggy. Like AP2 bolters are no joke.
Yeah. If they fly up those jets into a Thousand Suns army, just right in their face, and they don't kill anything, it is dead. All three of those planes are dead on the next turn, and that's a huge sink for orcs, especially if they bring what's it called, the Waz bomb. That gives off the 5-up invuln aura. Mm-hmm. K-Suns or Thousand Suns, they don't care.
Yeah,
They'll just splash it off the board and then just doom bolt it, and like that's it. Demek, do you have anything that you want to add on to it?
Magnus has flying, can heroically intervene.
No one brings Magnus. Val.
New meta, Magnus.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
it.
Magnus.
You heard it here first, folks, on Captain Tactics. Bring Magnus, and he
New
will
meta,
do
Magnus
you no
Madness.
wrong.
Yeah.
Get your new Magnus from Frontline Game.
Yeah.
Sure, they got some used ones.
Okay, I think that we've touched a little bit too much on Thousand Suns. We can move on to the next one. This one, I don't know for sure, but I wanted to run it by you guys. This is just a gaunt carpet. I know that there is blast inside of those squig buggies, but it's only D6, so they're getting like 6 shots. If they're bringing like the MSU squig buggies, then they're getting 6
2d6.
shots. Yeah. Oh yeah, 2d6.
2d6
right?
plus d6, so it's technically 3d6 from each squig buggy.
Yeah. So they have that. But what you do have is access to things like Malantropes that give you that -1 to hit aura. You have access to things like Dense Cover. So now not only do you have a -1 to hit aura, but you're probably going to have a -2 to hit, stacking that with Dense Cover. Also, you can also bring in a Maleceptor as well for that -1 strength for their weapons. So that means that their strength 6 all of a sudden becomes strength 5, so they're wounding you on 3s. Leviathan gives you that 6-up feel no pain as well, as long as you're next to a Synapse creature. All really great stuff to go up against orcs. Now, that sounds like a lot more of a skew list going specifically into orcs, but that is it's an interesting option that is available for an army that is an 8th edition army.
Nids have had scrappy ways of playing the mission, and there's been innovators who've been making them work enough. Mm-hmm. Tyler Bortel was on Grim After Dark just yesterday. He was actually talking about Octarius.
Yeah, Octarius, the new supplement. Mm-hmm.
If we want to talk about the next most oppressive shooting unit, the Humble Devil Gaunt is probably on the milk carton right now. It's got some nasty stuff it can do because of that book. Gaunt Carpet isn't just like bodies anymore. It's also got some savage output. So I don't think it sounds. I don't know. It's necessarily as ridiculous as it may seem at face value. And you're right. They do have some resiliency built in just from native -1 to hit, thanks to that floating brain of theirs.
Yeah.
I think Tyranid Gaunt Carpet, instead of like resiliency, what you're going for that is sort of like movement control. I think that's very important. You have to understand that like flyers have large bases, right? And you're going to get more value out of the Gaunts tackling the primary objectives and making areas where a plane just can't physically land because there's so many bodies, and that's how you're going to keep your Hive Guard alive. Like, you're not going to keep your Hive Guard alive by not, like, if they get shot, they die. I've seen an entire army filled with Hive Guard and, like, Swarmlord and, like, stuff get tabled in 3 turns by Wellspun Blaster Jets.
Yeah.
But if you can have bodies on the board and you zone them out well and prevent the orcs from moving to where they need to go to get angles on your things that can kill stuff, then your Hive Guard and your Devil Gaunts, for example, or things like that will be able to do the damage that you need to do. So it's more about that. You're looking at zoning, board control, and that's the strength of that style of list.
If you just blob stuff up, like where are the planes going to go? Where are they going to go? Like it doesn't. They literally can't go anywhere. They can't get up into your face, which is really good against. Yeah.
Tyler talks about how in 8th edition he used to bring a tent, like the base of a flyer.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And so because he used to be able to crash flyers. You can't do that anymore. They just fly off the table. So yeah, that was his game. He would use his like massive board control to try and crash flyers. The Eldar stuff and Razor Wing jet fighters from the Drukhari or whatever. So yeah, like it's definitely, I think Skari's like bang on the money there. Is that it helps to remove that element, and also even movement blocking of the buggies, the ones that actually do have to get out there. The rocket one,
Scrap
jet.
Yeah.
And the shock jump, which makes appearances, like those things are on flyer bases, are they not? Like they're on big bases anyway.
They're massive. Like you look at some of these like 18 buggy lists or whatever, and it's like you are a detriment to yourself when it comes to movement. Like if somebody has 3 Reaver jet bikes and they put 3 Reaver jet bikes in between 2 buildings and block your entire movement phase with 3 Reaver, or something fast that can just get up and stop you from moving anywhere. Like it can ruin your entire plan to dominate the table.
Oh yeah. And like you don't even have to charge those units if you could just put them up where. And especially with player optimized terrain, like a lot of people, they might mess up their terrain setup, and then they have like this small area where their buggies can move through. If you get first turn, or if you are, or if you survive their turn, then and you have enough fast units, you could just push your units up there. You don't have to charge them, and just leave them like an inch away or whatever. That unit will die, but guess what?
Yeah.
They're not pushing out onto the map. You now have board control.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And when it comes to you have to sort of take a step back from the table and look at it from that RTS bird's eye view, because a lot of times when you get really intense into the game and you get in the zone, you can kind of zoom in to specific parts of the table instead of looking at the bigger picture. And I think that's just a skill set that's important to practice, is look at the bigger picture instead of hyper focusing on a little area of the table because something died and you're angry and you want revenge.
Yeah.
Or something.
Definitely. Demeki, how about you tell me how is Death Guard gonna how do they work against freebooters?
I got one word for you.
Yeah.
Terminators.
Seems to be a theme. There seems to be a bit of a theme here.
Yeah.
Durability and negative modifiers.
I mean,
I think is probably one of the biggest themes.
Yeah, because they got a 2-up save, they got a 4-up invul. I mean, besides that, you know what also looks pretty good? Photo blow drone with flesh mower, because it has keyword fly.
If it can survive.
And it can heroically intervene.
Yes,
and
it can.
my Void Raven bombers don't like him, so I'm sure Ork planes wouldn't like him either.
Yeah, nah. They'll chew up some stuff.
Oh yeah, and then just naturally just -1 damage.
Yeah, then -1 damage is really good. Morty's really good.
Oh yeah, Morty wouldn't be too bad. Yeah, that's true. Look at that.
Yeah,
it just comes full circle. Circle of life.
Yep, he's back. He's back, baby.
3 Wasp blast jets might just destroy.
No. You heard it here.
Put him in cover.
You heard it here on Chapter Tactics. Magnus and Morty are back.
Put him in dents.
I don't know.
Put Morty in dents.
I think you'll be limping and oozing and kind of leaking everywhere.
Give us 20 dense terrain and then put Morty in the middle, and that's all. That's all we want.
That's all we need.
I mean, because honest to God, if you put Morty in your list, you're putting him in knowing good and well he's probably going to die in 1 turn. It's a possibility. Because I mean, he only has a 3-up armor save and then a 4-up invul.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Are you shilling off Morty?
No, I'm just saying I love my Morty.
Are you trying to sell off Morty? Are you trying?
No,
is that
I'm
what's going on here?
saying bring Morty. No, bring Morty, but just have expectations. He's there to deter fire.
Yeah. Okay. Switching over to another list that I feel like can really do well against freebooters. This is a not hot topic, but it's a maybe. Monster Mash Demons, and the reason why I say this is because if you roll really lucky with your exalted traits, things like -1 to wound, things like your 4-up invuln. And then you also have your Bellicors. Bellicor does extremely well into orcs because they can't reroll their hit roll, but orcs don't really care. But he's already -1 to hit, right? And he's also -1 to wound. So their 6 strength weapon now is wounding Bellicor on 6s and not on 5s. So I feel like that's it's decent enough. Also with pink horror spams. We saw like a little bit of it, on TTS mostly, where you just have pink horrors just like all over the board, regen them with blue horrors as well, have them move across the board when a pink horror dies, and then move the blue horrors up the board in order to snag an objective. And then that's another great way to body block orcs inside their deployment zone. You can string out a lot of pink and blue horrors in order to get into your opponent's deployment zone. Obviously, it's a very, very big point sink. But yeah, I feel like that some demons actually have a pretty good chance into freebooters. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I played against pink horrors actually at SoCal.
Yeah,
it took me 4 turns to kill that block, and I probably sent like a 400, 500 points at them. So I definitely felt the power. He rezzed like 10 of them. I was like, what the heck is happening here? Chaos.
Yeah.
One thing I think you forgot to mention is Beast of Nurgle.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. They can they have really big bases, so they could take up a lot of space. They can heroically intervene. Tough.
They do mortals.
They do mortals. Yeah.
Yeah, they're quite good. Like I think when you talk about Monster Mash, a lot of people instantly think about like 6 Slanesh keepers and things like that. Let me tell you, like, keepers will die very, very quickly to orc shooting.
Yeah.
So you probably want to use something like Bellicor or say the
Lord of Change.
Like the Super Lord of Change. And one of the tricks to do with the summoning horrors, if you are looking at doing something like this, is don't bring a unit of 30 horrors. You bring 10 horrors with like 400, 2 units of 10 or 3 units of 10 horrors with like 400 points of summoning. Or 300 points of summoning. And that little unit of 10 can stay at 10 the whole game if you want to prevent blast from overloading. But because of these splits, each unit of 10 is about 50 accumulated wounds. So you have to kill 150 models, but blast will have no impact on them.
Yeah. Some good stuff.
But you could just take no prisoners against that list and score 15.
Yeah, but that's a lot of stuff to kill.
Yeah.
That's a lot. It's a lot.
Well, if somebody takes no prisoner against you, you use your 400 points to summon a couple of demon princes. Boom. Or another Lord of Change or something. Whatever.
Yeah. It's some big brain stuff. That is. It's big brain. What about you guys? Do you guys have any other... I have more stuff here, but you guys have any other options that you guys want to throw into the mix here for things that you feel like are good against freebooters?
Yes. Yeah. Talos.
Yeah,
Talos. Like, when you talk about Drukhari, it's one of the main, like, factions that you have out there. And, yes, it is a bit of a toss-up. But I'll say that combining, I think, Kronos Talos, like the big, tough Drukhari units, and it has a couple of reasons. Number one, not just any Talos. I'm talking about Artists of the Flesh Talos. So -1 damage, 5 of Feel No Pain. Coven units.
Sounds like Death.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I'm having a flashback.
They're incredibly tough, and the fact is, they fly. They can do an incredible amount of damage in close combat. You can either take them with the Talos Gauntlet for 3 damage and like strength 8, or you can take them with the Macro Scalpels for strength 7, 2 damage. But, I like the Macro Scalpels, but a lot of people like the Gauntlets, even though you suffer the -1 hit. And then you have Heat Lances on them, which are D6 plus 2. Damage each. And so unit of 3, it's upwards to 300 points, but you get 21 wounds, they're toughness 7, extra homunculus. You can, they're -1 damage, they have a 3-up save, an invul, they ignore damage on 5s, and they will kill a buggy or a plane or whatever you put in front of them. And so far, they've been massive in that matchup because they kill buggies, they soak up a ton of firepower, even souped up +1 to hit firepower from orcs. And they can really bully the objectives really well while preventing the orcs from sort of getting that positional advantage and pushing into their zone. And if you put like Dense Terrain on the table and add the -1 hit on them, that's even worse. Yeah. So I think there's play with that style of list. As long as you're not taking too many dedicated transports, because that if there's one thing that freebooters love is to kill a raid or a venom, that's like an instant +1 to hit for everybody.
Yeah.
So you have to don't give them too many things that they can just kill easy. Basically,
sounds like
also,
Mandrakes might be pretty good too. Then natural -1 to hit, and they can just teleport off the board. I would think.
Yeah, Mandrakes. They usually are the first thing to die if they're not hidden. To be honest,
Yeah.
I don't care how many minuses to hit you have. If you get shot by 100 bikers shots or whatever, or 42 dakka jet shots or something, like you're removing 5 toughness 3 models more often than not.
I think something you said there that caught my eye is good old fashioned toughness. Toughness 7 is going to reduce the effectiveness a lot of the shooting that comes out of this particular list. A lot of strength 6 shooting, especially out of the dakka jets. I think the squig buggies are 5 or 6 strength 5 or 6.
They're 5, but they're 2 damage, so they become 1 damage into that the artist flesh Talos. So that's
winning on 5s is the point, right? Too you might be able to hit, but they're not really getting bonuses to wound. So yeah, they got volume, but they're still going to have trouble getting wounds through. So toughness, if you have it, can also work. Because I think the list is particularly effective in this meta because a lot of T3 little beaches out there.
Oh yeah,
running around.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
100%.
T3 T5, like what? Venom's toughness 5. What's a raider toughness?
Raider's T6, Venom's T5.
Even out as 4s there.
Even the rockets, which are all like 3 damage for orcs, yes, they're wounding on 3s, but the -1 damage into the Talos or the Kronos, even if you want to do that sort of thing, making them 2 damage instead of 3 means that each Talos can potentially soak up 4 rockets per Talos. Like that's 4 unsaved wounds to do 8 damage. And then you have a 5 up Feel No Pain on top of that. So you're more than likely going to be soaking 5 or 6 rocket unsaved wounds into each Talos before it goes down.
Yeah, definitely. But I think that I think that's good. It's, the only problem that you run into is like what you were saying. If you bring too many transports, then they're just going to shoot at that instead, right? Yeah. Okay. So what do you? Here's another one. What do you guys think about Necrons into this matchup? We'll start with who wants to talk about Necrons? No. Skari, you want to talk about Necrons? I can talk about Necrons a little bit.
You do know I love the sound of my own voice, right? Yeah. This is, this kind of ties into my personality.
It's reassuring to me because you can say something and then I can agree with it and then I seem like I know what I'm talking about. So it's
actually kind of enjoy.
If there's one thing I know when I'm talking about Necrons is I'll be back.
Yeah.
Well, little 3rd edition joke for you folks.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. It's not reanimation protocols. It's we'll be back.
Yeah, we'll be back.
So the thing about Necrons is Necrons work really well when you can't shoot off an entire squad or kill off an entire squad in one volley.
Yeah.
Right? So when you have lots of little units of orcs, like single buggies, for example, and that's probably not the best because they'll kill 1 wraith or they'll kill 1 scarab or they'll kill each buggy will do 1, and because they're multi-wound, you won't get the reanimation that you need because you'll only be rolling 4 dice at a time or whatever. What you need is something that's going to do enough damage that you're rolling lots of reanimation rolls to bring lots of models back in a go, but doesn't do enough damage to kill a whole squad. So it's sort of like it's a fine line between you want them to bring shooting so that proxy reanimations, but you don't want them to do not enough damage that then you're not reanimating your models.
Yeah.
And most Necron players aren't bringing big blobs of warriors because they die so quickly. However, ironically speaking, a big blob of warriors would probably be one of the best things into this kind of list.
Exactly.
Even with the blast, because they have 1 wound each, right? And one dakka jet is not going to kill 20 Necron warriors in a single go.
Yeah, no. And then if you put them on the -1 to hit, you're able. It's the same thing that you were saying with Gaunts, where like once you start bringing those big blobs, all of a sudden now
the thing is you're not gonna see the big blobs because like a Dark Eldar Witch Squad will kill 20 warriors in a single close combat phase.
Yes,
which is the irony within it. I will say though, one of the best things that Necrons have, funnily enough, into the current meta is the Void Dragon.
Oh yeah,
the Void
Bone Cap.
The Void Dragon Satan, who is just the bane of vehicles, and he's one of the only Satans that can heal when killing vehicles. And for every vehicle he kills, he can heal wounds. And when you have a ton of little buggies running around, if they don't kill it outright, you could have your Satan just healing up. And so I think it's like a hidden gem within the current meta for Necrons, personally speaking.
Yeah,
That sounds.
I agree. It's an interesting one. That's why I put it into the list, because I feel like that there's probably going to be some Joe Schmo out in like Square State US or something that's just going to figure out how to run Necrons into like freebooters and do pretty decently. Like
He'll go 3-3.
yeah, he'll go 3-3.
He'll beat the freebooters, but lose to Jakar.
Yeah. I think that we've been talking for a pretty long amount of time here. So we're just going to touch on this last one. This one is Custodes going into freebooters. And I think that it's going to be even more apparent once their codex comes out in December that they already dropped the news for. So we'll open up the table on that one. And I guess we could do like a small little round table of what we think is going to happen there before we end off the podcast, of what we think is going to happen on the Custodes codex. And I feel like that what would be a cool person to start us off would be Val. Val, how about you tell us what you feel like is going to happen with Custodes and how you think Custodes would fare against freebooters?
Well, I think the current design style of 9th edition book seems to put a lot more power into the data slate, which is what Custodes pay a tremendous amount of points for. So I think it sets up in favor of them not having a garbage codex, which is great. They obviously are already in a better position just because they aren't dependent on more detachments to generate CP. So they're not going into the fight underwhelming that way. Question is, are they going to be resilient enough? Because we've had a bunch of resilient armies release, and I'll be curious to know. It probably comes down to when this book was actually written, because they may correct in the opposite direction. So you have something like Custodes being less durable than, say, your Death Guard or your Death Wing. So yeah, I'm hopeful. I think the game kind of sets up right now to give them a chance at being a scrappy, sort of grindy army. They'll obviously immediately be good once they have their own custom objective. How they do in the freebooters will probably come down to how much output they can actually have, because I think that's often been one of the things that held back Custodes, is that they're tough, but they don't have enough bite to deal back damage outside of a bunch of big stumpy robots.
I want to know what they're going to do with Dawn Eagle on Jet Bike. That's my biggest one. I just want to know if they're going to just put that in the lava and just never have it come back. Demeki, what do you think about Custodes into freebooters, and then what you're thinking about their decks?
I mean, every time I look at Custodes, I think a little bit about Death Guard and just how resilient the Death Guard is, and like how resilient the Custodes are, and the fact that like the entire army has OBSEC and all these other great things. With freebooters, I feel like they can, especially with their bikes, like their bikes can probably mess up freebooters because they're very quick and they can deal the damage. But like, other than that, I think the only problem with them is the fact that they are very point costed, and you can only bring so many. So like it's just a game of attrition at that point, right? So
ironically, I feel like that's a good thing, right? Especially into freebooters. I think that one of the things is that when you have like a lot of models to choose from, you start having models that aren't very resilient. Like you look at something like Grey Knights that bring servitors to do actions, and they're just the action monkeys, 30 points, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever, however much they are. and you start filling in your army with these like less resilient units in order to do like certain actions and stuff like that. With Custodes, since everything is more condensed and smaller, right? Then your priority targets for orcs becomes a lot more confusing on like which one do I really want to hit, because there's so few of them. But if I don't kill off like this certain one, it's just like a higher threat saturation with less units, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think Custodes will definitely not be bringing Sisters of Silence if Freebooters is still the case, because those are just like, those are the servitors that they'd be bringing in that case for action monkeys to screen out and stuff.
You can just reserve them.
Yeah, you can also just reserve them, bring them in for the rod or whatever they're going to be taking for their secondary. But yeah.
Skari, what do you think?
So Custodes are an army that, like Dark Angels, can score lots of points even though they don't win, right? So they can pick a variety of secondary score and things like that. The thing about them is, as soon as you start losing models, it can really hurt. And yes, Shadow Keepers gives you an advantage with like the -1 strength. You can't get the rerolls or anything. Not that orcs get rerolls, but you're looking at -1 strength, meaning that all the strength 8 stuff against your Telemons becomes strength 7 or whatever. All the strength 6 becomes strength 5. The thing about orcs is they do more, like especially the scrap jets. They do a lot of mortal wounds in like when they charge, and that's like one of the biggest threats to Custodes.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna play into the matchup, you sort of have to play conservatively using terrain so that they can't just charge anything they want, and it's hard for the game to not get away from you, because the orcs, in stark contrast to what you want to do with the buggies, which is pin the buggies in their zone, the buggies will more than likely pin you in your zone. So you have to have a plan to sort of like be able to push out and potentially score or contest objectives that the orcs are going to be taking while taking an incredible amount of firepower. Yes, you have a 2-up save, but when Speed War is happening, you're getting a -2 to that save. That becomes a 4-up save real fast. Even if you have a Telemon that has lots of wounds, like taking 300 strength 6 shots or strength 5 shots, like you're going to fail some saves. I mean, it might not be the first turn, but as soon as that one Telemon goes down and you only have one left, or whatever build you decide to go for, it can be a lot trickier than you think. As for like, I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying don't feel like that toughness and that armor is like,
It's like your end all be all.
It's exactly. It's not like you can't just rely on that. It's about like you have to pick your targets well. You have to make sure they can't just focus their fire on units, that sort of thing. The same as anything. And with that new codex, who knows? We'll see. I'm going to sidestep Custodes completely and say, against freebooters, I hope the Genes to the Cult bring the heat when it comes to like being able, because they're going to be released as well. And I hope that they have some really cool tools to deal with like flyers, especially considering that right now, for example, blips are like the bane of flyers, so that you can use player optimized terrain to stop them from getting the angles, as they can't come near blips in their movement phase. So even if you go second, you can really shut down that alpha strike. And so hopefully we get to see that in the new codex.
Yeah. Now, that's it that we have. That's all that we have for this podcast. Now, there are more armies that are probably out there that do really well against freebooters. So, hopefully, one of you guys out there can figure it out. But mostly this podcast was just talking about that it's not as bleak as people make it out to be.
Yeah. Just take snake bites.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, the meta skewed so hard in one way into the MSUs, T3 MSUs.
Yeah.
And one army just found a way to hard to counter it. So
Yeah.
now you just gotta bring back some balance. Balance in all things, as my friend Thanos once said.
As someone who, why'd half of us die? No, as someone who I'm kind of like your average 40K player in the sense that I consume a tremendous amount of content and I never actually play. So I feel like I have a like a good perspective on this, which is when you have like very stratifying lists like we do right now that like suck up all the air in the room, and there are stuff that like rise to the top. It seems like the whole meta is samey, whereas like 99% of a tournament hall, all the N1s, people on N2 or people scrapping for 500, they're not always playing into freebooters. They're not always playing into AdMech and like they might be playing into Drukhari, but like Drukhari loses too sometimes. So it's not on the ground. It's really not bleak, but if you're an observer, it sure does seem that way. And so I think that's why people get really flamey about this when the meta gets into one of these bad ruts. And also it would be really helpful and awesome if there was just some acknowledgement from, powers that be that, things may seem a little too spicy right now, but don't worry, we're on it. We'll fix it. The silence is deafening, and I think that's kind of probably the biggest problem.
I can feel that 100%.
Yeah.
All right.
Agree. Val with the words of wisdom and the shades to shade all shades.
Yeah, boy.
So you can't tell what I'm actually looking at, which is the Frontline Gaming secondhand shop, which did not have any Magnus or Mortarians available.
No.
So there you go, guys. So apparently they're still in. People are not selling them off.
Yeah.
All right. So that is it for this episode. Skari, if you would like to plug yourself on where people can find you.
Into the 12-volt battery. Thanks a lot. I'm glad I made you smile there. You can find me, Skari, on YouTube at Scodcast on YouTube, Patreon, all that good stuff. Just a huge shout out to the Patreons, without whom I couldn't do this. So thanks so much. And I've also started doing some battles with mini wargaming. So if you like some cool, fun, action-packed games, check it out.
The Archon in residence.
Yep. And
That's right.
Mr. Heffelfinger, where can people find you?
I don't know, around? I'm around, bud.
Down
don't
the
worry.
street,
Not
maybe
too far.
in the alleyway, somewhere. If you clap 3 times, I heard that if you say Val Heffelfinger in the mirror 3 times in a row, he pops up.
Oh,
That's what I heard.
I was there the whole time. I'm just a huge creepy scumbag. But
I'm doing it when I get home tonight.
I guess you say I'll be helping out, running some streams coming up, hot and heavy in the future. We got the amazing U.S. Open Austin coming up. There's going to be a round of finals, which I don't know if anyone even knows about. That's going to be coming up at the beginning of December for all the GW stuff. And then, of course, we're getting ready for the big show, the LVO.
Let's go.
Where we're going to, I think, put on the best Warhammer stream of all time.
I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
I'm going to be feeding the baby.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you, guys. Everybody. Have a good night. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
We love you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having us.
See you.
Bye.
Bye bye.